The sun blazed over Crescent Cove, Oregon, on August 12, 2008, its golden rays bathing Azure Bay ocean world in a luminous glow. The Pacific Ocean, just beyond the park's gates, shimmered under the midday light, its salty tang carried on a breeze that rustled through palm fronds lining the entrance. Families poured in, their voices a lively chorus blending with the distant cries of gulls swooping overhead. Children, their faces aglow with excitement, clutched dolphin-shaped balloons, their small hands tugging parents toward the heart of the park. The Orca Arena, where Kale, a 22-foot male killer whale, held court. Kale was a spectacle of nature's design, his black and white form slicing through the water with a grace that masked his immense power. His dorsal fin, towering and slightly curved from years in captivity, cut the surface like a blade, drawing gasps from the crowd. To the thousands filling the bleachers, he was a living marvel, a wild creature brought close for their delight. But beneath this radiant summer day, an undercurrent of tension simmered, a storm coiled tight, ready to unleash chaos. At the story's core was Elias Kane, a 33-year-old Marine trainer whose life was woven into Azure Bay's fabric. Raised in Crescent Cove, Elias was a child of the sea, his heart tethered to the park through his aunt, Marina Voss, its co-founder. His childhood was a tapestry of memories, wandering the park's winding paths, sketching starfish in a worn notebook, or pressing his face to glass tanks to watch the slow dance of rays. The ocean was his sanctuary, its mysteries a call he'd answered early. For Elias, Kale was more than a performer. He was a partner, a sentient being whose dark eyes held a depth of emotion that seemed to echo the sea itself. Their bond was the stuff of legend. Over years of shared moments in the water, Elias and Kale had forged a partnership that felt almost sacred, their routines a dance of trust and mutual respect. Elias spoke of Kale with quiet reverence, describing his playful nudges, his intelligence, and the way his vocalizations seemed to carry stories of a lost world. To the crowds, their performances were a spectacle of harmony. To Elias, they were a testament to a connection that transcended captivity's confines. But on this fateful day, that bond would shatter in a moment of unimaginable horror, leaving a wound that would ripple through Azure Bay and the marine park industry forever. The afternoon show was a vibrant affair, the arena's tiered seats packed with spectators fanning themselves against the relentless Oregon heat. The Orca tank sparkled, its turquoise depths catching the sunlight in a dazzling display. Kale glided beneath the surface, his massive silhouette a promise of awe. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, their excitement cresting as Elias stepped onto the platform, his lean frame clad in a sleek black wetsuit. His dark hair, streaked with sun-bleached highlights, caught the light, and a warm, confident smile spread across his face as he raised a hand to hush the cheers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elias's voice boomed through the speakers, rich with enthusiasm, "welcome to Azure Bay Ocean World, where the sea's wonders come alive. Today, Kale and I invite you to witness a bond built on trust, respect, and a shared love for the ocean." The crowd erupted, their applause mingling with the rhythmic slap of Kyle's tail against the water, sending a spray that glistened like diamonds in the air. The show began with a flourish. Kyle breached, his 22-foot body soaring skyward before crashing back, sending waves crashing against the tank's reinforced walls. Water drenched the front rows, who laughed and clapped, their faces alight with joy. Elias moved with practiced grace, his hand signals precise as Kale responded, spinning and diving in perfect harmony. The crowd leaned forward, captivated by the seamless choreography, the interplay of man and orca, a living work of art. The grand finale approached, a rare in-water routine, the show's pinnacle, where Elias would swim alongside Kale, their synchronized strokes showcasing the depth of their connection. Elias slid into the water, his wetsuit shimmering as he gave Kale the cue to begin. For a fleeting moment, all was perfect. Kale swam beside him, his massive form keeping pace, his dark eyes meeting Elias's, with what seemed like mutual understanding. The crowd held its breath, the sight of man and orca moving as one, a vision of unity that felt almost otherworldly. Then, without warning, the rhythm fractured. Kale veered off course, his movements no longer fluid, but sharp and erratic. Elias, attuned to every nuance of Kale's behavior, sensed the shift instantly. A flicker of unease crossed his face, his jaw tightening as he raised a hand to redirect the orca, his signal firm but calm. Kale ignored it, his massive body tensed, his powerful tail slamming the water with a force that sent violent ripples across the tank, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the arena. The audience, mistaking the tension for a dramatic flourish, clapped louder, unaware of the danger brewing below. Elias surfaced, his voice sharp as he called Kale's name, a note of urgency cutting through the water's muffled hum. But Kale was beyond reach. His eyes, once warm with recognition, now burned with a wild, unfocused intensity, as if a primal force had awakened within him. In an instant, he lunged, his jaws, lined with rows of conical teeth, clamped around Elias's torso with terrifying speed, the force stealing the breath from his lungs. The crowd's cheers turned to gasps, then screams, as Kale dragged Elias beneath the surface, his massive form thrashing in a frenzy of aggression. The water churned into a chaotic froth, foam and spray obscuring the struggle. Elias fought desperately, his arms striking uselessly against Kale's sleek, unyielding bulk, his legs kicking in a frantic bid for freedom. But Kale's strength was overwhelming, his jaws a vice that refused to yield. Blood bloomed in the water, a crimson stain spreading through the turquoise, its tendrils curling ominously around the struggling figures. Kale shook Elias with a primal fury, his movements a storm of rage, as if years of confinement had erupted in a single, devastating moment. The arena descended into pandemonium. Spectators leapt to their feet, some shrieking, others frozen in disbelief, their minds struggling to process whether this was part of the show or a nightmare come to life. Trainers on the platform sprang into action, their voices hoarse with panic as they screamed for help. They hurled buckets of fish and flotation devices into the tank, desperate to distract Kale, but the orca was consumed, his focus locked on Elias, the world beyond them a blur. For nearly 3 agonizing minutes, the attack raged. Kale dove deeper, twisting and shaking Elias with brutal force, the water a maelstrom of blood and foam. Elias's struggles grew weaker, his movements slowing as his strength ebbed, his body battered by the orca's relentless power. The crowd's screams reached a fever pitch, parents shielding their children's eyes, unable to tear their gaze from the horror unfolding before them. Finally, as suddenly as it had begun, Kale released him. Elias's broken body floated to the surface, limp and lifeless, his wetsuit torn and stained red. Divers plunged into the tank, their strokes frantic as they hauled him to the platform, their faces etched with dread. Medics swarmed, dropping to their knees, their hands pressing rhythmically on Elias's chest in a desperate bid to revive him. CPR was administered with mechanical precision, but the injuries were catastrophic. Shattered ribs piercing vital organs, a collapsed lung filling with fluid, internal hemorrhaging that no effort could stem. Elias's blue eyes, once bright with passion and purpose, stared blankly at the sky, their spark extinguished forever. At 2:47 p.m., Elias Kane was pronounced dead at the scene, the arena falling into a stunned silence as the weight of the tragedy settled over Azure Bay like a suffocating fog. The park's once joyful atmosphere lay in ruins, the magic of its spectacle shattered by the brutal reality of what had transpired. To understand this tragedy, we must journey back to the origins of Azure Bay Ocean World, a park born from a vision of wonder and stewardship. In 1987, Marina Voss, a marine biologist with a fierce love for the sea, co-founded Azure Bay with her husband Thomas, a former fisherman whose weathered hands and warm smile endeared him to all. Their dream was to create a sanctuary where visitors could connect with the ocean's creatures, fostering awe and a commitment to conservation. Marina, with her silver-streaked hair and eyes that sparkled like the sea, was the park's heart, her guided tours weaving tales of whale migrations, coral reefs, and the delicate balance of marine ecosystems. In its infancy, Azure Bay was a modest endeavor. Small tanks housed vibrant clownfish, their orange scales glinting under soft lights, and delicate seahorses that swayed like living ornaments. A rehabilitation pool sheltered injured seals, their recovery a testament to the park's mission. Children crowded around tide pool exhibits, their fingers brushing starfish and anemones, their squeals of delight mingling with Marina's gentle explanations of tidal ecosystems. Volunteers, many local teens, manned educational booths, their enthusiasm infectious as they shared facts about ocean currents and marine biodiversity. Azure Bay was a labor of love, its ethos rooted in education over profit, its gates welcoming school groups and curious locals alike. But the marine park industry was a ruthless landscape. By the late 1990s, competition from giants like SeaWorld loomed large, their dazzling Orca shows and sprawling attractions drawing crowds Azure Bay couldn't rival. Marina and Thomas, desperate to keep their dream alive, sought investors, their vision bending under the weight of financial necessity. By 2002, Azure Bay had transformed into a spectacle-driven destination, its quaint exhibits replaced by grand arenas and high-tech displays. The centerpiece of this reinvention was Kale, a male orca whose arrival in 2003 marked a new era, one of ambition, but also of ethical compromise. Kale's story began in the icy waters of the North Atlantic, near Iceland's rugged coast. Born in 1991, he swam with his pod, a tight-knit family whose haunting vocalizations carried for miles across the open sea. At 6 years old, his world was torn apart. Captured in a traumatic netting operation, Kale was ripped from his mother, her anguished calls fading as he was hauled onto a ship. The journey to Oregon was harrowing, his massive body confined in a sling, his spirit battered by the loss of his family. Sold to Azure Bay, Kale's striking black and white markings and powerful physique made him an instant star. But the transition from boundless ocean to concrete tank was devastating. Early reports from trainers noted Kale's distress. His vocalizations, once melodic pod calls, became mournful wails, unlike anything heard in the wild. He floated listlessly at the tank's edge, his dorsal fin drooping, a telltale sign of stress in captive male orcas. During training, he'd occasionally lash out, slapping the water with his tail or refusing cues, his agitation palpable. Researchers warned that his tank, though larger than many, was a fraction of the ocean he'd known, its 80-foot diameter a cruel constraint for a creature built to roam hundreds of miles. Yet Azure Bay's management, dazzled by soaring ticket sales, dismissed these signs as minor. Kale's performances, his towering breaches, his synchronized swims with trainers, packed the arena, his suffering masked by the roar of applause and the flash of cameras. Elias Kane was Azure Bay's beating heart. Born in Crescent Cove, he grew up under Marina's wing, her passion for the sea shaping his earliest memories. As a boy, he'd trail her through the park, his sneakers scuffing the gravel paths, his notebook filled with sketches of sharks and octopuses. The ocean was his refuge, its rhythms a constant in a life marked by loss. When his parents died in a car accident at age 10, Marina became his guardian, her stories of marine life a balm for his grief. She'd sit with him on Crescent Cove's rocky shore, pointing to the horizon, telling tales of orcas leaping under northern lights or coral reefs teeming with color. By 15, Elias was a junior volunteer at Azure Bay, hauling fish buckets and scrubbing tanks. His curiosity insatiable, he'd linger by the exhibits, watching otters tumble playfully or listening to the hum of water filters, his mind alive with questions. He earned a marine biology degree at Oregon State, his thesis on orca cognition earning accolades for its insight into their emotional complexity. Joining Azure Bay as a trainer at 23, Elias stood out for his empathy. He saw animals as partners, not props, his approach grounded in respect and a deep understanding of their needs. His connection with Kale was electric from the start. Their first meeting in 2003 was a quiet moment by the tank. Elias, then a rookie trainer, tossed fish as Kale watched, his dark eyes assessing. Over months, trust grew. Elias learned Kale's quirks, his love for ice blocks, which he'd nudge playfully, or his habit of splashing trainers during quiet moments. Kale responded to Elias's calm presence, his gentle voice, and his patience during training. Their routines evolved into a dance of mutual understanding. Elias's hand signals met with Kale's precise movements, their bodies gliding in sync during in-water sessions. To Elias, Kale was family, his spirit a mirror of the ocean's wild heart. Audiences were spellbound. Elias's warm narration, paired with Kale's grace, made their shows the park's crown jewel. Families returned year after year, drawn by the magic of their bond, their performances a blend of spectacle and intimacy. Elias would stand at the tank's edge, his smile radiant as Kale breached beside him, the crowd's cheers rising like a tide. But to Elias, the true magic happened after hours, when the park was quiet. He'd linger by the tank, talking to Kale in soft tones, his voice carrying over the gentle lapping of the water. He'd bring treats, extra fish or floating toys, and watch Kale's slow, deliberate movements, believing their connection could heal the wounds of captivity. By 2007, cracks appeared in Kale's behavior, subtle at first but undeniable. Trainers noted sharp tail slaps that sent water crashing over the platform, refusals to perform complex tricks, and vocalizations that sounded like cries of frustration. During quiet moments, Kale would float at the tank's edge, his massive body still, his eyes distant, as if lost in memories of the open sea. Other orcas in the park, a female named Lyra and a younger male, Taro, showed no such signs, their behavior more predictable, making Kale's changes all the more stark. Elias, deeply attuned to Kale's moods, grew alarmed. He kept meticulous logs documenting how Kale's agitation spiked after long performance days or during crowded shows. One entry described a moment when Kale refused a cue, instead circling the tank rapidly, his fins slicing the water with unusual force. Elias proposed solutions, reducing Kale's schedule to 3 shows daily, introducing enrichment like puzzle feeders or kelp-like toys, and allowing rest days to ease his stress. He cited studies on captive orca welfare, arguing that Kale's mental health was fraying under the relentless demands of performance. Management dismissed him. Azure Bay's executives, flush with investor funds, saw Kale as their golden ticket. "He's adapting," one director insisted during a tense meeting, waving off Elias's reports. "Orcas are resilient. The crowds love him, and that's what pays the bills." Another executive, a sharp-suited newcomer from a corporate firm, added, "We can't afford to cut shows. Kyle's our brand." Elias's logs were filed away, his warnings buried under the pressure of profit. The park's schedule intensified, Kale performing up to 5 shows daily, his tank a stage for endless spectacle, his distress ignored by those who saw him as a commodity. Elias wrestled with his role. He loved Kale, but the park's direction gnawed at him. Marina, now retired and living in a seaside cottage, urged him to push harder, her own regrets over Azure Bay's transformation fueling her advice. "You're his voice, Elias," she'd say, her eyes fierce. "Don't let them forget he's alive, not a machine." Yet Elias stayed, believing he could protect Kale, that their bond could bridge the gap between captivity's reality and the ocean's promise. He doubled his efforts, sneaking extra enrichment into Kale's routine, floating balls, ice blocks filled with fish, his heart heavy with unspoken fears. The tragedy of August 12, 2008 shattered Azure Bay. As Elias's body was carried from the tank, the arena emptied in a daze, spectators stumbling out, their faces pale with shock. Children sobbed, their balloons drifting forgotten, while parents whispered in disbelief, their voices trembling. The park's cheerful music, upbeat pop tunes that had looped endlessly, fell silent, replaced by the wail of sirens as ambulances and police flooded the lot. Crescent Cove, a town whose economy leaned heavily on Azure Bay's tourism, reeled, its streets hushed with a grief that felt almost tangible. Animal rights groups descended within hours, their protests a thunderous rebuke of orca captivity. Outside the park's gates, activists waved signs reading, "Kale deserves freedom," and "End captive cruelty." Their chants echoed through Crescent Cove, drawing locals who'd once seen Azure Bay as a point of pride. Now they joined the calls for change, their anger fueled by the image of Elias's lifeless form. News outlets aired shaky cell phone footage of the attack, captured by a spectator in the front row. The grainy images replayed endlessly on cable networks. Hashtags like #Justice for Elias and #Free Kale trended for weeks, social media a battleground of outrage, sorrow, and debate. Marina, devastated by the loss of her nephew, led the family's response. She filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Azure Bay, demanding accountability for the negligence that had cost Elias's life. The legal battle was grueling, unearthing a damning trail of internal communications. Elias's ignored reports, emails prioritizing ticket sales over animal welfare, and a chilling memo from an executive. Kale's our cash cow. Keep him working, no matter what. The lawsuit revealed that management had known of Kale's stress for years, yet prioritized profit over safety. The case settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, rumored to be in the millions, but no amount could ease Marina's grief or restore Elias's light. Marina became an unlikely advocate, her silver hair and weathered face a fixture at protests. She spoke at rallies, her voice trembling but resolute, recounting Elias's love for Kale and his warnings about captivity's toll. "My nephew died for a show," she told a crowd outside the park, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He believed in Kale, in his soul. We failed them both." Her words, carried by news cameras, struck a chord, galvanizing a movement that spread beyond Crescent Cove. The park hemorrhaged support. Attendance plummeted, families shunning a place now synonymous with tragedy. Sponsors, wary of the scandal, withdrew funding, their logos vanishing from park billboards and websites. By late 2009, Azure Bay announced its closure, its gates chained, its tanks drained, its exhibits dismantled. The once vibrant park, a cornerstone of Crescent Cove's identity, became a ghost town, its empty paths overgrown with weeds, its arena a silent monument to loss. Kale's fate offered a glimmer of hope. Animal welfare organizations, galvanized by the tragedy, fought tirelessly for his release. After months of negotiations, in early 2010, Kale was relocated to a sea pen off Norway's coast, a vast enclosure where he could swim freely for the first time since his capture. Footage of his arrival showed him leaping against a stormy sky, his powerful body breaching the water, his vocalizations echoing with a joy absent in captivity. Volunteers at the sanctuary reported that Kale joined a group of wild orcas passing nearby, his calls blending with theirs, a tentative step toward reclaiming his place in the sea. Yet his freedom was bittersweet, paid for with Elias's life, a cost that haunted those who'd fought for him. Elias's death was not an isolated tragedy. Across the marine park industry, similar incidents, attacks, injuries, and fatalities, punctuated the decades, each a stark reminder of captivity's toll. Studies revealed the grim reality. Captive orcas suffered reduced lifespans, often dying in their 20s or 30s compared to wild orcas living past 50. Their complex minds, built for social bonds and vast ranges, unraveled in tanks, leading to stress-induced behaviors like aggression or self-harm. Documentaries inspired by tragedies like Elias's expose these truths, shifting public opinion. By 2015, major parks began phasing out orca shows, their arenas repurposed or shuttered, their legacy tainted by blood. Crescent Cove rebuilt slowly. On Azure Bay's former site, a marine education center opened in 2012, its focus on conservation a tribute to Elias's dream. The center, named the Elias Kane Marine Institute, offered interactive exhibits on ocean ecosystems, with tanks housing rescued animals unfit for release. Marina, now in her 70s, volunteered there, leading tours for school groups, her stories laced with lessons from the past. She'd point to a photo of Elias smiling by Kale's tank and say, "He taught us to listen to the sea. We must never stop." Her work kept Elias's spirit alive, a quiet act of redemption for a town scarred by loss. Kale's name endured in advocacy campaigns, his story a rallying cry for wild orca protection. Sanctuaries like his became models for reform, offering hope for other captive cetaceans. Yet for those who'd known Elias, the victory was hollow. Friends remembered his infectious laugh, his late-night talks by the tank, his unshakable belief in Kale's soul. For Marina, every wave crashing on Crescent Cove's shore carried his voice, a whisper of the boy who'd loved the sea too fiercely to let it go. Elias Kane's legacy lived in the ripples he left behind, a changed industry, a freed orca, a town relearning its place in the world. But above all, it lived in the memory of a man who swam with a killer whale and saw not a beast, but a friend, whose heart beat in time with the ocean until the day it stopped. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with a friend. With your support, we make our content better and better. See you in the next video.